POD2 Tailored Pitch Presentation. Audience Libertarians. Topic Parking Deregulation. Presented by Andrew Valcarcel, Spencer Chan, and Oscar Sokoff. According to the American Planning Association, minimum parking requirements are policy decisions usually made by municipal governments which require new developments to provide a set number of off-street parking spots. These minimums look to cover the demand for parking generated by said developments at peak times. City and urban planners use parking data from the Institute of Transportation Engineers to produce the American Planning Association's Parking Standards Report. This report contains uniform parking requirements based on every recognized land use type across the United States. Two key issues with MPRs are traffic engineers and planners use peak travel hours to calculate the minimum parking requirements. Parking data collected is applied across all cities and municipalities across the nation and does not take into account the varying social, economic, geographical, or environmental factors of each individual municipality. Current MPR policies cause an overproduction of parking spaces on limited municipal space. Excessive parking spaces produce negative economic and environmental consequences on land development, the cost of goods and services, and the price of housing.
Based on typical affordable housing development costs, one parking space per unit typically increases moderate priced housing costs approximately 12%, and two parking spaces increases lower priced housing costs by 25%. Prices increase significantly when parking is underground or requires multiple levels of structure, so each floor down in the garage costs 2 to 3 times as much as the previous one. Then, minimum parking requirements increase urban vehicle ownership about 14% overall and about 25% among lower-income urban residents. The resulting increase in vehicle ownership and use increases various external causes such as congestion, traffic accidents, and air pollution. Parking quotas constrain the supply of dwelling units, particularly of modest economical ones, which causes their price to rise. And for example, developers may end up building only 15 apartments rather than 30. The same goes for every other builder in the city. Fewer new apartments mean more competition for all apartments, which extremely increases the cost of the rent for an apartment.
Our first alternative proposal is to completely deregulate parking regulations. Some cities are experimenting with right now with completely doing away with minimum parking requirements, which has proven to be restricting to developers. Parking requirements currently can restrict maximum usable space, meaning less unit and unit space, which results in less revenue. Parking construction, especially covered and underground garages, also severely increase developmental costs unnecessarily. Completely deregulating parking requirements for developers should greatly unbind the developers' hands and allow for a more laissez-faire development process, and allow developers to implement the amount of parking they see fit. This should give property owners greater control over their own property, and in turn allow them to realize the greatest potential their properties have.
Alternative 2. Adapt MPRs by municipality. Numerous cities have revised existing MPRs from the APA parking standards. Major cities like Buffalo, New York, Chicago, Illinois, New Orleans, Louisiana, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Santa Monica, California have all deregulated parking in key development districts. Parking reform in these cities have yielded lower tax rates, revived business districts, decreased property vacancies, and allowed the development of fewer off-street parking spaces.
Our policy recommendation today is completely eliminating MPRs. By eliminating MPRs, cities will have more space for other projects as excessive parking becomes eliminated. This gives cities more authority in making planning and development policy decisions, and allows them to execute their own local vision, unconstrained by arbitrary parking requirements. Municipalities can decide their own land use. Communities that want to be more drivable can keep or build more parking. Cities that want to be more walkable can reduce their parking, and municipalities with more unique transportation needs can find a balance that will fit their own needs. Rejecting MPRs will also foster experimental or new methods to managing antiquated parking development.